All right, welcome back. So we're just about to launch into the boss challenge. I literally just finished that video, and I thought a little bit more about what we have here in the content to take us through conditional statements. And I realized I've only touched on these just very briefly. So what I want to do in this video is I want to take us into conditional statements, and I want to, because it's so important, I want to spend a little bit more time talking about if-then logic. So the conditional statement, if then, and also talk a little bit more about how we use and or connections, because these two types of statements are just absolutely critical to the success of the creation of our causal landscape diagram. If we don't get the logic right, then nothing works. Nothing works properly. Okay, so we're going to spend some time looking at that. All right. So first things first, here we go. Let's pick a color. Start with black. So the first thing I want to look at is if then. All right. Now the way that we're going to use these, let's kind of lasso. Is it lasso or is it lasso? Is it a lasso? I don't know. But the way that we're going to use these, if you think back to the way that we structure the causal landscape diagram, is as we move down the page, literally down the page, right? We're moving further back in time. So that means that we have to read our if-then statements from the bottom to the top, right? So when we create these, it's going to actually read something like this. If, okay, whatever x is, then we're going to go up like this, then y. Okay, so if x, then y, and that's how we're going to read this. Now just think about this for a second, because you use this probably every day and you don't even realize it. If I do x at work, so if I'm helping my boss, if I get the presentation out on time, if I do a really good analysis, if I'm able to get that build completed on time, then y, then I get a raise, then the customer's happy, then someone acknowledges all of my hard work. So this is often how we think. If then. If I wake up late for school, or if I leave my house late, then I'm going to be late for school, or then I'm going to be stuck in traffic, or then my kids are going to get stuck at school late. If you go to bed too late, maybe you're talking to your son or your daughter, if you guys go to bed late, then you're going to wake up late tomorrow, or then you're going to be tired, okay? So we use this constantly. Every day we're using if-then logic, and you probably haven't realized it, but hopefully now you'll start to see this. So the first point is if x, then y, but we're reading from the bottom to the top, all right? So let's stick this off to the side, and then we'll put a couple of these examples together, and you can basically, we'll see how this stuff works together, but just keep that in your mind for right now. If x, then y. Let's get this thing off of me here. Get off me. There we go. Let's get to some color. Maybe, I don't know, something in here. That's pretty nice. All right, so let's do an example. So I'll take this because I'm drinking a coffee. Okay, my coffee for the morning. Very nice. So let's do it. So let's say if what? If, let's do something where I spill the coffee in my lap. Okay, so if, and remember, we're going from the bottom to the top. So coffee. All right, good enough. Spills in lap. Okay, so if the coffee spills in my lap, and you could put in or on or whatever. If the coffee spills in my lap, put a box around it, right? Then, right, so the arrow's going up. We're reading from the bottom to the top. Actually, the whole thing is going from the bottom to the top, right? So we're starting here. Actually, let's make it even easier. Let's do it like this. We'll go by the numbers. So 1, 2, 3. What's 3? So if coffee spills in my lap, then, pretty simple. And make sure you have terrible handwriting like me. So if the coffee spills in my lap, then what? You could say, well, then the coffee burns me, then the coffee stains my pants, or if you're wearing a dress, stains your dress or your shorts or whatever, something like that. So if coffee spills in my lap, then coffee, let's do it like this, stains my clothes. There we go. I think there's an E in there. Zip. Right, and here's your coffee cup off to the side. Something pretty cool like this. And you can see here that I am an expert artiste, but look at this. Okay, if the coffee spills in your lap, then the coffee stains your clothes. All right, so 1, 2, 3, 4. Makes sense, right? But that's pretty important because most of the time people, when they're doing causal analysis, they don't even get this. They don't get the if-then logic. Now let's just, I know this seems really, really simple, but let's just reverse this for a second. Let's just pull this off to the side. I'll stick it, actually I'll stick it right over here for just a minute. And let's try to reverse this, okay? And I know this seems basic, but trust me, it happens all the time. Actually, let's go like this. All right, so we'll start here. Actually, I should make this a little bit bigger. That one's good, and then let's take this one. And oops. All right. Oh, look at this. I'm just like the worst tracing job in the world here. Jumped to the wrong layer. So let's go back to this one. There we go. This is the fun of navigating, you know, your Sketch Autodesk Sketchpad. I'm okay with it, but you know, I could be a lot better, but it is fun to play with it. All right, so let's make that one a tiny bit bigger just so they're consistent. All right, now let's try to read this the other way. So if coffee stains clothes, then coffee spills in lap. That does not work. Right? It seems blatantly obvious that doesn't work. But just the fact that you can read it that way, you can see that it doesn't make sense, right? So we can say if the coffee spills in lap, then the coffee stains my clothes. That makes sense. If the coffee stains my clothes, then coffee spills in my lap. It doesn't work. You'll see this all the time when you're looking through people's logic. They'll give you a causal statement that sometimes you can't tell which one, when you first get the statement, you can't tell which one comes first, right? But if you use this if-then logic, it really makes it a lot clearer. Now, that's one way to read it. If you go the other way, so I'm reading down, then I would use because. So in this case, let me get this out of the way because it's going to confuse the situation. And of course, you have to bear with me. Oh, this is on, of course, another layer. Get rid of that layer for a second. Delete this. And I don't know what's on this layer. We'll delete that. And I don't know what that layer is either. We'll delete that one. So let me pull this one back up. I'll go back to here for a second. And we'll play with because for just a second. Oops. All right, now let's pull this up here. All right, now let's look at because. If we want to read from the top to the bottom, so if you want to go this way, you can use because, and sometimes I'll use if then and I'll use because to go both ways and check it both ways, because sometimes things can be confusing using if then, so then you cross check it with because. I've heard people use therefore. I don't actually really like therefore, but some causal analysts will use therefore. But let's play this out. All right. So the coffee stains my clothes. Remember this part here, I still have to read going this way, and then I jump over here and I can use because. All right. So the coffee stains my clothes because coffee spills on my lap. Okay? So you see how that works? So if I go up, I say, if the coffee spills on my lap, then the coffee stains my clothes. When you play it back, you can say, okay, the coffee stains my clothes, the coffee stained my clothes because coffee spilled on my lap. All right? So you can see how these can kind of work together. So we're never going to use because in the actual construction of the diagram. We're always going to use if then, but when you're saying it out loud to yourself, then you can use because, and you can check it both ways. Check it going from the bottom to the top using if then, and then from the top to the bottom saying because. Now I just made a point about talking and saying this stuff out loud. Let me get rid of some of this junk for a sec. So get rid of this. This sounds silly, and you probably think it doesn't really make any sense whatsoever, and oh, if I don't say it out loud, then so what? You know, it's not going to be a big deal. But I'll tell you what, if you say this and you read this stuff out loud, it makes all the difference in the world to your success. I don't know why it is, but it just is this way. So when you're reading these and you're creating these causal landscape diagrams and you're identifying the elements and creating the functions, I recommend that you lock yourself away in a room and you say this stuff out loud. If you say it in your head, it just doesn't have the same effect. So if I'm saying it in my head, okay, that's one way. It's not very, the connection's not great. If I say it out loud, if coffee spills in my lap, then coffee stains my clothes. Yeah, that works. So again, you're going to find that if you say this stuff out loud, then I highly recommend you do, especially if you're going into this challenge, the big boss hog, the big boss round challenge, say this stuff out loud. There's a ton of objects that you're going to find throughout the house, in the attic and underneath the house in that crawl space. And you're going to start to get overwhelmed, and you're going to cross your lines where I don't know if this one's causing this or if this one's causing that. Okay? So let's look at a couple more of these just so we make sure we understand. So let me pick two. Let's say all right, how about this? Let's put I eat carbs or whatever. I eat, like, you know, anything like sugary. Okay, so I eat carbs. And then you have something where maybe in 20 minutes you say, I feel hungry. Okay. Which one is first? You know, this is an interesting one, right? And you're like, well, does this one cause that one, or does that one cause this one? And, oh, is it a chicken or the egg situation? Okay. Let's try and play with this. If I eat carbs, so let's put our if here, and I'll put a box around this. Then, okay. If I eat carbs, then I feel hungry. Okay, that does work. And what if we go the other way? So, again, I'll copy this and we'll make a little box here. Okay, and we'll move that off to the side, and we'll get another one. Oops. And oops, go back. Probably not on the right layer, am I? Ooh, no, I'm not. Go down to the other layer. Let's go back down here. All right, now we can try to do this again. All right. All right, so there we go. That's good enough. All right, not my best work, but it'll work nonetheless. So let's play with this for a second, and let's see how we go. Where's my pencil? Let's fix this box over here, and let's go this way. We'll call this number 1, and we'll call this number 2. So if I feel hungry, then I eat carbs. Okay. Now this one's quite interesting, isn't it? Let's go and use because. Okay. So I feel hungry because I eat carbs. I eat carbs because I feel hungry. I feel hungry because I eat carbs. Okay. So I think this is an interesting one because you'll run into this situation a lot. There is call it a prime mover in this situation, right? If you feel hungry, you don't have to eat carbs. You can eat anything you want, right? So I feel hungry. If we go over here for a second, I'm on this one. If I feel hungry, then I can eat anything I want. Okay, I can eat carbs, I can eat protein, I can eat fat, I can eat any one of the macronutrients that I want, or some combination thereof. But if I eat carbs, will the act of eating carbs make me feel hungry? Whatever, and we have to add an and in there. There's going to be 20 minutes or 30 minutes or an hour later or whatever the case is, or however my body reacts. There's other things in here, but park the and for a second. Just follow with me with this if-then logic. If I eat carbs, then I feel hungry. That actually works. Okay, you will feel hungry sometime later if you're just eating empty carbs. And I should say empty carbs or sugary carbs or something like that. I feel hungry. If I feel hungry, then I eat carbs. Now, again, that's a decision that you can make. You can decide to go this way. But this one over here, option 1, actually works. That logic works. When I eat carbs, then an hour later, or whatever it is, some time period, I feel hungry. Okay? You'd feel hungry much sooner than you would if you ate fat and protein. Okay? Would you agree with that? Now, my dietitians on here can jump in and they can fill out some of the details, but I'm just trying to give you a simple example because this stuff comes up a lot. And people aren't sure when you're doing the breakdown of the causal analysis which one comes first. But using that if-then logic, and again, I tried the because, okay, I can sort of start to work out, okay, causally in time, this happens, okay, so if X, then that happens, that Y happens. So I can start to really be able to unpack this and create this. Okay, so that's the if-then condition statement. And I know I spent quite a bit of time trying to explain this, but it's pretty important. And when you get into this challenge, you've really got to work this out, okay? Take your time. Say it out loud. Use your logic, okay? All right, let's get rid of one of these. And let's play with the and connections for a second. Get rid of some of that. All right, that's good enough. Of course, I'm on a different layer here. Let's just get rid of that layer. All right, so if I eat carbs, then I feel hungry, okay? Now, the next thing I want to talk about is this idea of, it's another conditional statement, and or logic, okay? So when we have this and or situation, what we're actually saying is, if it's an and, right? The and is connected to something else. And what it's saying is I need both of those elements. I need both and elements because they're linked. I need both of those things to fire at the same space or the same place and at the same time, okay? So let's take an example. If I eat carbs and, okay, so we'll put our and in here, and you'll see that those are connected by basically a little ampersand. Is it an ampersand? Is that what it's called? An and sign, okay? So they're connected by that and sign. And you'll see a box like this, whatever that box is, and oftentimes I'll draw an arrow coming in here. Actually, I don't put an arrow on that side, and I put an arrow coming up like this. So what it means is if I eat carbs and, let's put carbs are sugar. So if I eat carbs and carbs are sugar, then I feel hungry. Okay, so let me, first of all, this is all getting kind of messy. So let's try to clean this up. Okay, I think I've got it. Sorry, I just had to clean this up a little bit. So the if-then logic stands. Okay, so we're going to continue to use the if-then logic, but now we're going to get into this idea of and or. Okay, so if there's an and or, and in this case we're using an and connection, we're still reading from the bottom, but we're going to say if I eat the carbs and carbs are sugar, then I feel hungry, right? So let's just add the numbers in here so it makes a little bit more sense. So we say if, okay, that's number one. So if I eat carbs, that's 2, and, oops, and that's 3. 4, carbs are sugar. Then we're going to put our then. That's going to be 5. And then up here is going to be 6. It's going to be I feel hungry. So let's go by the numbers. So if I eat carbs and the carbs are sugar, then I feel hungry. Okay? Now, this still doesn't get us the whole way there in terms of problem solving. Like I would probably add in here some time element. And I want to put I'll put one thing in here just to make a point. Now, I'm probably not gonna go into detail on this right now because it'll just make this video way too long. But there's an interesting thing I want to show you here. All right. The construction of this element contains an object or tool, which is I, me, you, eating carbs. Okay, so that's an object there. This is an object here. So I eat carbs. But note when we put this and connection in, what's actually happened is this box, this element, starts to explain what's actually happening in terms of the current state or the current setting of the dial for these other objects. So what you'll find is if you're doing this correctly, there is a linkage here. So I eat carbs, and the carbs are sugar, and you might put something around the eating, you know, for the time or something like that. So there will be another box sitting off here with some details. I'm not going to do it right now. But when you have these and connections, you're always going to have at least 3 and connections because you're going to have the main argument, which is your action argument here, and then you're going to have conditions. This is a condition. This is a condition. Now, I don't always show the action and the condition because it's not super important. But what is important is that the explanation of the setting of this dial is captured off to the side in this other element. Okay, so in this case we're saying I eat carbs and those carbs are sugar. It's talking about the state or the condition of the carbs. Okay, it's hugely important that you get this. All right, now for this first exercise, the reason I'm not going into detail on this is because I want you to just, when you get into that challenge, just try the challenge. We'll clean this stuff up later. But right now, I just want you to understand that there is an and connection. Okay, I eat carbs and those carbs are sugar. If those two things happen, and there's some time element in there, and those things happen, then I feel hungry. And you might say I feel hungry 10 minutes later or an hour later or whatever the case is. Okay, but to start with, let's get this and connection. All right, now let me clean this up and then I'll do another example. Okay. Wow. All right. So I cleaned this up a little bit down here in the bottom. So I've got the numbers in here now so you can see. All right. You need to pause the video and have a look at it. That's fine. So if I eat carbs and those carbs are sugar, then I feel hungry. Okay. And again, there's some passage of time element in there as well. But is that the only way that I can feel hungry? Right. So I said that there were two things that we were going to look at here with this and or. One is and the other is or. Okay, so if you have an and, you're linking attributes together, so or elements together. So this element plus this element equate to or result in that effect. But there's also another way that we can arrive there, and that's using an or connection. All right, so is that the only way that I can feel hungry, is if I eat sort of empty carbs or sugary carbs? No. Yeah, there's another way that I can feel hungry. All right. So what if I don't eat anything? What if I don't eat and I'm not in a fasted state? I might have to just park that for a second. Just you're not in a fasted state. You're not in ketosis or anything like that. You just haven't eaten for some period of time, and you're whatever. You just haven't eaten. Okay. So in that case, you can plug that in here and you can say, so let's just say haven't eaten. Okay? So in that case, if you haven't eaten, okay, this is one way in which you can end up in this place where you feel hungry. Okay, so again, same logic, right? If I haven't eaten, then I feel hungry, right? I'll pull this other one back over here just so it's in the field of view, and we can compare. Actually, I don't need the whole thing, do I? And we can compare kind of how these things link together. So what do I need? I just need the bottom. Let's grab this bit down here. Yep. Okay. And we'll pull these up here for a sec, make them a little bit bigger. Something like that. I don't know. How big does it need to be? All right, good enough, I suppose. All right, so let's look at this now. Yeah, there we go. So in this case, and I'll connect this up here, and this is our sort of OR connection. OR, okay? So what's actually happening here is where we've got these sort of two arrows coming in, we're actually saying that either one of these lines, either path, can result in this effect or this outcome. So one, if I eat carbs and those carbs are, empty carbs or they're loaded with sugar, then after some period of time, 20 minutes, whatever it is, I feel hungry, okay? But if I haven't eaten, or maybe I haven't eaten and I smell food, or I haven't eaten and I'm thinking about food, or I haven't eaten and I'm not in a fasted state, whatever you want to add in there, that can also result in you feeling hungry, okay? So in that case, we use our OR connection, all right? Now, this is, again, really, really important because you will always have an AND connection, and there's many, many times where you're going to have these OR connections. Now, the reason it's important for us to differentiate between an AND connection and an OR connection is this. When you go to solve or go into solution ideation, you go to solve this problem, okay? If you have an AND connection, you only have to kill off one of the attributes. Okay, so look, if we say I eat carbs, and get rid of that. As soon as I can stop that, there we go. If we say I eat carbs, and instead of those carbs being sugar, let's say those carbs are complex, okay? Maybe in 20 minutes I'm not going to feel hungry. So if I change the fact that I eat carbs, so I'm not eating carbs, and I eat fat, then I can kill this off. If I change the carbs, so I eat carbs, but the carbs aren't sugar, the carbs are complex carbs, then that will also kill off this path, okay? We're going to get into a lot more of this when we do solution ideation, but I just want you to have this in the back of your mind when you're thinking about creating your cause tree for this challenge, okay? Your causal landscape diagram. So if it's an AND connection, I only need to kill one of the AND connectors. And then this path, this arrow leading in here, stops firing, okay? But if it's an OR connection, the problem with OR connections is every single OR connection can potentially create that outcome, sometimes partially or sometimes in full, which means if I have the carb issue, I eat carbs and those carbs are sugar, let's say I change my carbs to complex carbs, I can still get hungry from not eating. So I've got to deal with both sides of the equation, okay? So just know that. That's what happens when we have an OR connection. This is why it's so important to identify whether something is an AND connector or an OR connector. And whether it's an AND or an OR connector, we're always using that if-then logic. If I haven't eaten, then after some period of time, I feel hungry. If I eat carbs and those carbs contain sugar or are largely comprised of sugar, then I feel hungry, okay? That's what we're trying to get to here. So this is a first pass. I can only explain so much to you. You've got to actually get in and try this. So now when you do your Big Boss Hog challenge, okay, which is the one that's going to launch, probably tomorrow or whatever, when you do your Big Boss challenge and you create your elements, you can use and or logic, not you can, you must use and or logic and if then logic to connect your elements in space and time. So anyway, look, I know there's a ton of stuff going on there and it probably seems a bit complicated. have a go in the challenge. Okay? See what you can do. See if you can make sense of this. After that challenge, when you see me work through it, you'll have a lot more information there to work with, and you'll have a much better understanding of how this stuff all comes together. Anyway, I know it's hard. I know it's challenging in the beginning, but do your best. Hopefully this makes sense. And you know what? It's all about fail forward fast, right? We continue to iterate. We try it. We try again. We make a change. We ask questions. But it's only in the doing that we actually learn how to do this stuff properly. All right. Anyway, you're doing great. You've made it this far. Head into that challenge. See what you can do. It's going to be a tough one, but good luck. I know you can do it.